Yeah,
James,
that's right.
the black therapist, yeah?
Yeah, man.
So we can find you. We're going to plug you at various points, man. Tell us where we can find you on Instagram. If you're on any other platform, just let us know what you're about, man.
Yeah. So Instagram is MEN_TO_HEAL, which I'm using now. My website, www.mentoheal.com, MENTOHEAL.com. So yeah, it's a pretty much, man, an introduction. I'm James Harris, located in Richmond, Virginia. Have a daughter named Peyton. I'm a veteran, 8 years Army, 2 deployments, 1 Iraq, 1 Afghanistan.
Respect.
Thank you, bro. Entrepreneur, multiple houses, multiple properties, stuff like that. And I'm also a therapist, clinical mental health therapist, actually here in Virginia. And as recently as April, I became an author. Published a book called Man, Just Express Yourself, which is, you can get it on my website. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart, pretty much anywhere that distributors are. I'm not sure how it works over in the UK though, but, pretty much you can get it though.
Yeah, definitely, man. Mm-hmm. Okay, so listen, man. I got a long list of questions for you, bro.
Yeah, let's get it.
Now, this is how it's gonna work. We're looking at around 2 hours. We may finish before, depends how you roll. But we're gonna understand. I think this session is based on you and how you work and why you do what you do. It will help us really understand the need for the work that you're offering. I want this channel is about relationships. I want everyone, women, men, married, single, to understand the importance of self-care. Mm-hmm. And I have not come across a black male therapist before.
Oh man, yeah.
So I want you to know that the way that we do it here is raw. Tell us what time it is. I want to ask you though, why on your Insta page, right, have you got black therapist on there?
Pretty much a conversation starter, and it's because it's what I do now as far as therapy, man. I want more people to be attracted to it, not just my circle, the people who know me, but pretty much everybody that has that outreach. And social media is one of the biggest platforms out there. So for me, it was more a way to capture who I am and what I'm representing. And the same as the brand, so I wear only thing I wear is my own gear, bro. So that's pretty much it, man. So if you see me walking down the street, you're gonna recognize it, and then it's gonna become an instant conversation starter.
Why are you a therapist? How did that start?
A couple of different reasons, man. So when I was younger, I emancipated myself at 16. So I was a ward of the state. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with what that is? So foster home and group homes. I don't know how you guys do it over there, yeah. But here you can pretty much the legal age is 18, but emancipation means you can sign yourself out, discharge yourself pretty much, and become your own adult. So that's what I did at 16 years old. But since I was a ward of the state at foster home and group homes, therapy was pretty much a weekly experience. It was an ongoing thing. And for me, I didn't benefit from it, sadly. Couple reasons. One, I probably was just stubborn kid, but most importantly, the reason I didn't benefit or obtain much from it as I should have or could have is because of cultural reasons. So I was this, older, fat white guy. I'm this young black kid from the project. So it was unrelatable. It wasn't a cohesive process for me, right? So week after week, it was just us sitting, I'm sitting on the couch, he's sitting in the chair. We was exchanging dialogue, but we wasn't getting anywhere. So for me, therapy, I didn't obtain much from it. Fast forward later, joined the Army, 2 deployments, realized I was different, came back, tried therapy again, and it was pretty much the same process. This time it was a older white lady. So it was the same thing. It just wasn't relatable based on many reasons, cultural being the main one. So from there, man, I just was like, nah, it has to be another way. So I didn't give up on it. What I did was, as far as entrepreneurship, hop back into it, and I wanted to make sure that I'm providing the quality of service that I want to obtain, not only for myself and for the people around me, but to be, a positive representation for us within the field, Also display that certain level of empathy, because I know what it's like to be that young kid, you know, going through therapy, or that veteran who's going through therapy and having somebody on the other end who don't relate, or who's only talking to you from a perspective of a book. Um, you know, so it's just so many theoretical orientations out there that one can use to build rapport or a cohesive bond. But at that time, those therapists didn't do that with me. So I wanted to ensure now that I'm providing the quality of service for the people I'm serving.
Are men a major feature of your service, of your brand?
Sure.
Why is that?
Right now, to be honest with you, even what you said earlier, one, you don't see a lot of male therapists. Two, so it's not a lot of men who are probably actively seeking somebody who looks like them to process information with.
Yeah.
And not only that, just the basics of men are reluctant to seek services, whether that's medical services and or mental health services. It's still not a common thing for a man to want to open up and express himself. So that's why it's a limit on things. And then, of course, you got the older generation who here in America still view, I guess, getting help from outsiders as a potential risk, because, you know, in some cases, the older generation, they were vulnerable to seeking assistance from outsiders, and it was used against them. Whether that was the Tuskegee experiment, I'm not sure you'll know about that, but here, you know, they injected soldiers with syphilis when it was supposed to be helping them and stuff like that. So a lot of people still are in fear. Like, if I give you my information, you're going to use it against me. And, you know, of course, if it's mental health related, you can potentially lose your job, or you can get your children taken away. You know, it's different things like that. But it's also confidentiality on our behalf. But, of course, it's hard for you to know that and want to entrust that. So those are some of the difficulties. And then, of course, you got the religious factor. You know, some people still feel that they can just pray it away or leave it at the altar and stuff like that. So it doesn't go beyond you know, a clear mind and opening up a space to where, you know, you can receive help. And then, you know, the ego, the pride thing, and then just how you based on society with your peers and stuff like that. Because I know here where I am, most people still tend to equate vulnerability to weakness. So, you know, it's a lot of people that are demonize somebody for being vulnerable or expressing themselves a certain way or displaying certain mannerisms or whatever the case is. So you got to figure, man, like, it's hard for somebody to want to be, you know, like, have a feeling and go to their peers or family and they dismiss them or shut them down or don't validate those feelings. You know, so after a while, they become a shell. They become hardened or desensitized to it and just wear it, you know, and up until they explode or whatever the case is. You know, so those are some of the main reasons why why I specifically want to target men and getting them open back to certain experiences. And there's probably a few more out there that I indicated, but those are the main ones.
No, that's cool. So let me ask you a specific question.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience, how long have you been a therapist now?
I have been in the private practice field or therapy in general.
In general.
In general, over 10 years, but I've been in private practice over 2 years now. So, like, I don't want to speak in general because I'm not, you know, I don't want to mislead you're in the UK, so I don't want to mislead. That's what I'm asking you, like, what you mean by certain things. So that's all.
Well, I guess you know what it is, because I think that some people are able to give therapy unqualified because they're gifted because they're gifted that way. So where it began, where did you start to help people?
Yeah, so here you have to be licensed, if that's what you mean. Yeah, you have to be licensed here in Virginia. I finished grad school in 2018 and started my licensing journey shortly after. So yeah.
So this is the question: what are the most common things when it comes to men that you are finding? What are the common features? What are the issues that you're finding that keep coming up? Take your time.
Look, one is for sure unresolved trauma, right? A lot of people have not just men, but a lot
Yeah.
of adults, right, have unresolved trauma that they don't even know that's there, that they don't even know that's impacting them. So those are the difficulty ones. And then, of course, men and depression, because some men still view depression as a female diagnosis, not knowing that it's not gender specific. So I find myself re-educating a lot of men on different things, but the trauma piece is more impactful because that can carry over. The depression can too, and certainly other diagnoses as well. But the traumatic piece of it, not recognizing certain things within yourself, can carry over mostly and impact, of course, the people around you, whether that's in your home, whether that's at work, different environments. And to be real with you, I'm not sure if anybody know what trauma is, or probably experiencing different things and don't know how to correlate it or match it to something. So a brief overview of what trauma is, though, is like a disturbing event that causes you overwhelming your ability to cope with different things, right? So this can be a hindrance to a wide range of emotions that you're unable to feel at certain points. And then the emotional sides of trauma is it varies from sadness to anger, to fear, to shame and stuff like that. And then it can carry over, like I said, to nightmares, or you having insomnia,
Nightmares.
difficult, yeah, nightmares. So like you still reviewing the attack or whatever the catastrophic event, the traumatic event in your dreams, right? Difficulty in relationships, which people don't tend to associate with trauma, but those things can impact how you have emotional outbursts to your partner or to your children or coworkers and stuff like that.
Can we pause on that for a second?
Sure.
So this channel is about the relationships, right? I want to know more about your thoughts on how mental health, the past, and relationships, how they tie together. You mentioned that outbursts.
All right, so let me ask you this. Are you familiar with trauma bonds?
Trauma bonds, no. Not that
Yeah.
term, no. I've
All
heard
right.
of it, but I don't know what it means.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna put you on, man. I'm gonna enlighten you, but I still
Yeah,
want you
man.
to be able to do your own research on it, because you having this platform about relationships and marriage, this is something that you guys could possibly do yourselves. But so pretty much trauma bonding is your, let's say, the compatibility piece, right? Like you're compatible with a partner, but you guys are bonded around a specific trauma that happened probably when you guys were younger, right? So let's just say, like you and your partner, like your parents were alcoholics, and you meet this lady, your wife, her parents were alcoholics. Now you guys bonded and centered around that. That's how you guys are processing. Yeah, or you were abused when you was a child, and she was abused when you was a child. So now you guys' love language is abuse. You think she thinks that you love her when you are aggressive or abusive to her. That's how she received that love. So trauma bonding impacts a lot of different relationships, and a lot of couples tend to not know what it is. So outside looking in, we're looking at it like, oh man, like have you ever looked at a couple and said, why is she still with him? He's doing XYZ, or she's doing this, those are trauma bonds, attachment issues, and a lot of couples don't associate those things. They just feel like when he yells at me, that means he loved me, or
If he hits me.
if he hits me, that means that's the type of love, because that's what they seen growing up. Those are the patterns. So those are the bonds that are attached to them, and that's what's keeping them together. Not knowing, the outsiders are viewing it as, man, I hope they go their separate ways, because it's only going to continue to manifest and grow into something else. And it, because it outshadows the ability to understand or process what actual love is. Like, you shouldn't be in a situation to where it's unhealthy to you mentally or physically. So whether that's you being drained, now you're not able to sleep or eat, or cope and function at work, that's an issue. Or you got those physical hindrances, like I said, like whether it's abuse physically, or just little shoves, or whatever the case is. Like, those things are unhealthy and shouldn't be happening. But that's part of trauma that people tend not to recognize. So, of course, those things can impact your relationship, as well as, if you got little ones in the house. Those are the cycles that we need to break. Did that answer your question on trauma bonding?
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're good. You're going. The flow is good, man. The flow is good.
All right, cool. So I'll hop back to trauma then. So
Yeah, bro.
some of the physical signs of trauma is, of course, the nausea, the dizziness, the change in appetite, headaches, and gastrointestinal problems too. You know, like your bowel movements are irregular, or you having stomach pains and cramping and stuff like that. Those things can be a result from different diagnoses such as trauma. Psychologically, of course, we got a host of different features that can come with that, such as PTSD, depression, anxiety, and it can lead to, of course, substance use and stuff like that. So what a lot of people don't know too, that trauma is, like, in the early stages, like anything up to a month is acute stress disorder, right? Anything after a month is, like, it can be a month and a day, it can be 6 months, a year, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and somebody will go without any symptoms of that related experience, but it can just happen. That's what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. So anything over 30 days, anything over a month is post-traumatic stress disorder from that event, you know. And again, like, a lot of people don't understand too that within trauma, you don't have to be directly the person that's impacted by it. It can be something that you witnessed or viewed, right? So you and I can be standing together and you got hit by a car, and you can be not affected at all. But for me, I can have those other issues that I described earlier, such as the nightmares about you being hit or not being able to sleep because you got hit, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, I tend to educate most men, especially on what trauma is, and then I break it down to them with the small T's and big T's. So small T's and trauma, a lot of people tend to overlook because it's not as loud or in your face. So small T's probably be something like relationship issues or infidelity, or you moving jobs, legal conflicts, you know, going back and forth to court and stuff like that. The big T's is what people pretty much associate trauma with, such as like the catastrophic events, you know, like earthquakes and mass shootings and sexual assaults and stuff like that. So those things most. So those things, and again, trauma can be directly or indirect impact to you or somebody else.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that and depression, of course, is what I educate the men most on.
Talk to us about depression in men. What are you coming across? What are you experiencing?
Okay. So depression overall. All right. So when I said I re-educate men on what depression is, because the vast majority of men, probably even the men that you know, don't associate themselves with being depressed or still look at it like a female diagnosis. So I hear that all the time. I'm like, nah, it's not really gender specific. You know, if you got a certain criteria, then you fit that bubble of having depression. So pretty much men and women can get depressed. You know, the signs and symptoms are the same, but the display of certain characteristics are different. So when a man is depressed, he tends to be angry or aggressive and stuff like that. And women tend to be more nurturing and passionate and wanting to seek services such as, of course, journaling or talking to their friends or even going to therapy. So those are some of the differences. But depression also affects the ability, how we feel on a day-to-day, how we handle daily activities. And it's anything pretty much you was in this down state for a period of 2 weeks or more. That's when we clinicians are able to decide on if it's clinical depression or major depression or just you being stressed. So some interesting to mention that stress itself is normal, right? So day-to-day stress is normal. But when it starts impacting and impairing your life in different fashions, such as how you interact with your peers, such as you not sleeping or you're not going to work on time, you have a loss of interest or pleasure, you have suicidal thoughts, those things lasting for 2 weeks or more tends to be the hindrance and why it's important to target those things. And also you can get the physical symptoms of it, like the racing heartbeat, the tightness of the chest, headaches, digestive issues. And a lot of people for a long time in studies, didn't associate the mind and the body as one, but now we're seeing that it's connected. Like somebody, like hypertension and
Mhm.
diabetes and heart disease, we know
Mm.
that you can get those things now from stress. And a lot of people at first didn't correlate those things. They just thought it was genetic or, lifestyle choices like your diet and stuff like that. So of course, depression itself can lead to suicide. But back to the men. So when I break it down to the men in session or men that I encounter, I'm like, all right, how's your appetite? When was the last time you ate? Throughout the day, or how are you sleeping? Are you able to fall asleep at a decent time, stay asleep throughout the night? Are you isolating from your teammates or your coworkers or something like that? Or are you still doing the things that you normally do? Do you find interest in it, things that you normally find interest in? So when I break it down like that, they start wondering, like, oh man, I haven't been eating like I normally eat. Or yeah, I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't go back to sleep because I be thinking about
Mm.
stuff. Or dang, I don't know the last time I hung out with, you know, Kevin or whoever. I'm like, yeah, but also that the criteria for depression. Now that we know what it is, we can treat it. We can get you going on different things. But once I break it down like that, they tend to understand it. But if you just hear the word or you depressed, you think, nah. Well, they have the tendency of thinking, nah, that ain't it. So of course, like I said, you got the anger, the irritability of how it's normally displayed within men. Then you got the feelings of anxiousness or restlessness, problems with the sexual desire, or the intimacy. I put up a video the other day on premature ejaculation. Those things can result from being overly stressed or depressed, and you're not even addressing them. Um,
You know,
you
I'm
know,
liking. You know, I'm liking how you're throwing all these symptoms out there because I
yeah,
think people are like, oh, and they're grabbing. Hold on, I know that one. You know?
exactly. Yeah, like, oh
Yeah.
man, this is, it's probably a
Hey,
result from it.
premature thing. I'm good, man.
Yeah. So
But yeah, it's good that you're throwing out a lot of
yeah,
symptoms that we can understand.
you can feel tired and not know why. Of course, you got the physical aches like your joints. Inflammation could be caused from it. Um,
Mhm.
Suicide attempts, of course, the suicidal thoughts as well. Men tend to complete suicide more than women. But of course, women, the research suggests that women attempt suicide more, but men complete it more.
Yeah,
Um, of course, you engage in high risk, reckless behavior, being promiscuous, substance use, different things like that. Um, and realistically, it's probably three different categories on how depression has manifested itself. So we got the genetic factor, in which, of course, it can be passed down because you got a family history of it. Like people in your family just be more prone to having depression, which means you're more prone to having it. And that goes with a couple other diagnoses as well. Environmental stressors, those things can cause depression, especially in men, because based on society, they got to be the provider. They got to, have a certain type of financial structure to take care of that family, or they got to work overtime. In some cases, they are like in a patriotic society. They still, excuse me, they still are the head. So certain things got to be done through the man. In certain, probably in relationships or in the work environment. So those environmental stressors are some to deem them to be more prone to being depressed. And of course, you got the illnesses that can contribute from it. Like if you heard that you got cancer or COVID now that's going on, those things can make your symptoms worse and enhance it and make you want to tend to, have a little bit more worration about it. Um, so it's different ways that you can support depression as well, man. Just be a listening ear, a supporting factor. I know it's probably a lot of wives like, oh man, I just heard you mention some stuff about my husband. What can I do? So support him, be an ear for him. Don't pressure him. Try to slide him some research,
Oh, bro, hold on. Don't give the solutions yet. We
okay.
got. I wanted to, yeah, because I wanted to just run over a couple of questions. There's a couple of questions and
Sure.
comments here that we want to throw at you, man. Yeah, we're gonna post. Bear with me a second. There's so many comments.
Yeah,
It's the
nah, let's
so
get it.
many people are going through experiencing trauma bonds. Yep. Then we have staying in a familiar place that is safe when in reality your safe place is actually damaging. Yep, the trauma bonds. True. Oh, question. Do men tend to withdraw more than females when depressed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, and that's also based on the support system too, which is good. So, like I mentioned earlier, right? So if you got this 10-year-old boy, right, and let's say he's experiencing depression, but he go to his family, he go to his peers, and they hit him with, "Nah, suck it up, man, you'll be all right," or stick your chest up and drive on, or man up, or whatever the case is. So by the time he's 30, he's used to hearing that. So when he feeling these things now, who he gonna go to? Because everybody that he previously went to, them told him like, "Nah, you all right, you'll feel fine, or it's normal,
Okay.
get over it."
So let me ask you this question. If I have a son who's the same age, 10, 12 years old, and he's crying because he failed at something,
Yeah.
right? If I say to him, "Oh, come here, give me a hug, let's talk to me about it," I could have a fear that I'm making him soft to deal with the real world. What would your advice to me be?
So that's an ignorance based on a social construct, right? So it's no research that'll provide you. All right, so it's so many football players now that are gay. They've been throughout their lifestyle, been beat and bashed and physical in sports, but they still are gay. So what are you trying to prevent by nurturing your son? As a parent, it's your job to nurture your son. It's your job to provide a healthy and safe environment. So if that involves treating him, you're validating his feelings or his fall in that situation. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the ignorance of people thinking that they are going to make their son soft or gay or sway one way or the other, that's simply not true.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean gay. I meant soft as
No, I
in
got you. Yeah, you
we
meant
won't have any.
nurturing. Yeah, he's good. You still should be able to nurture him. He's 10 years old. It's okay for him to feel certain things and you to react in a positive manner to those things. Because if not, he's going to have resentment probably towards himself and towards you when he get older. And he's going to display those things in a passive aggressive manner to his partner or his children when he get older, realistically. You know what I'm saying? It's certain cycles that we have to break.
Another comment here, man. African American men tend to shut down and go inward, which makes it difficult to detect. Black men have more areas to carry depression than most. I don't know what that means. Black men have much more areas to carry depression than most, especially in these days. What do you think that means?
Hopefully they're clarified, but I'm thinking that they mean like we got the pressures of society, we got the pressures of being Black, we got the pressures of, wanting to fit in certain spaces without being viewed as a threat. We have the pressures of being just antagonized from every demand of life, probably. So hopefully they're clarified, but I'm guessing that's what they mean. And I would tend to agree. It's hard to be a certain complexion, a certain ethnicity, and a certain status within life without being viewed or demonized as a certain thing. So that's probably what they meant.
Wow, that's deep. That is a theme in this current hour of, since George Floyd, man. It's woken up a lot of things. I work more in social services here, and it is something that they're looking at broadly. They're actually having discussions around how Black people are being affected. Let's understand it, which is a good thing. So Black men, it appears that Black people or Black men are carrying more weight. Is that fair to say?
Sure. Yep. Definitely. And again, like I said, it's the societal weight, it's the systematic structure weight, the target weight. It's just so much being African American, man, and a lot of people don't know. And add this to your notes as well. Epigenetics, right? Epigenetics is pretty much passing down of genes, which means we were impacted by slavery and different stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And those things tend to linger within us, that again we don't directly associate with, but those things are causes for certain ways on how we react to certain things. So there's so many studies out there on epigenetics as well. So add that to your thing.
I want to throw this at you, man. Let me see the time. Okay, we've got time. I want to throw this at you. Someone has been open. Ken, this is a deep one, actually. I have every symptom you just described. I cringe at the thought of being depressed, but it's true. I know my trauma, but can't help myself.
Is that
Bro,
that's what somebody said?
someone just said that.
Okay.
You're on the spot now, bro.
So what was is there a question to it? Like,
It's a statement, man. I mean, I think they're just admitting that they've got a past and they are depressed and they don't know how to help themselves. What would you say? How would you respond to that?
all right, so they can approach it two ways. So they can identify the root of the issue. They can definitely backtrack and see, like, all right, why am I feeling this way? How can I prevent myself from feeling this way? What areas can I avoid, right? So those things will be classified as triggers. Like, stay away from your triggers. Once you learn your triggers, you'll be able to put yourself in a better position or build up a certain level of resistance to go into certain areas. Like, if I know when I go to this office, I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna be draining because my boss is gonna be nagging, or my coworkers is gonna talk my head off. Or if I know, like, tonight when I get home, my wife is gonna be confrontational, or just in conflicts within marriage. So you gotta identify those things that make you upset and try to work around them. So how can I approach this differently, right? So your mindset got to change. Meaning, if I can find a new job if it's work related. I can, do what I got to do to avoid my boss nagging or whatever the case is. If that means doing my reports at a decent time or a different time, or just staying out the spotlight at work. The home piece is probably most impactful because of course it's not just you, it's your partner or probably your children. So those are some things that you have to figure out. Is it something that you want to see counseling for, not only for yourself, but do you want to take your partner with you? Is there still a conflict or unresolved issues? This person was able to recognize their triggers, but hopefully if they got a partner, that partner is able to recognize those triggers as well and try not to be as confrontational, so it's not as cantankerous within that relationship. They can work together, they can build together, or they can figure out, like, hey, I just need some downtime, sweetheart. Like, let's just pause real quick. Like, when I get home, give me an hour to debrief from work or whatever the case is, and then I can come back and we can figure some things out. So that's all about communicating with your partner. That's all about you growing with your partner as well as knowing your partner.
Ken, I want you to DM me afterwards, please. So we can just make sure you're safe, you know what it is? I have a load of questions, but there's comments here, and I think it's better to address them.
Go ahead, let's get it.
You feel me? Challenges with employment, housing, and mental health. I was going to make the point, man, that COVID has got people in an interesting place right now, man. I mean, let's deal with that. It's money. It's being in the home, lockdown. You're stuck around the kids. We're not used to it in this society.
Sure.
So you got to put bread on the table. You got to homeschool, and there's noise, and you're in a box, and you don't know how you're gonna pay your bills. Help us, man.
So you can only control what you can only control. So everything outside of that, you can only change how you directly approach the situation. So you can't control how your boss react. You can't control how your partner react, but you can control how you react. You can control the environment. Like, it's nothing right now that we can do with COVID. The scientists and the epidemiologists, everybody else who are in that field has yet to figure out what we can do about COVID. So right now, try to reduce your anxiety around that. Like, it's nothing that you can do about it, so try not to focus on it. And then two, you want to monitor the information that you're giving yourself. So just remember, all information is not good information. So definitely monitor and reduce where you're getting these sources of information from, whether that's reducing how you view social media, or looking at the news and seeing the deaths constantly rise or the cases constantly rise. You want to, of course, proper nutrition. You want to try to ensure that you get the proper amount of rest. You want to ensure too that you got a strong support system. And what I mean by strong support system is, if you feel in a certain way, you got somebody that you can go to that will validate your feelings, that would not just tell you, oh, it's fine, everybody's dealing with it. You want somebody who would at least try to assist you in processing your emotions and different things that you're feeling.
I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
There's a comment here. Many black men are screaming and nothing is coming. I want you to, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term silent scream. Like, you know when you just,
yeah,
but you do it intensely, and there's no noise, there's no one to talk to.
Yeah, so that's a common thing, and that's what I
And
spoke about earlier.
you're not doing it to anybody, you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah, so again, you got to remember, like, so you having these feelings and you can't outwardly project them or express them. So you tend to keep them in, bottle it up, and then you get to that point to where, again, it's manifesting itself in reckless behavior, being promiscuous, substance use, you drinking more than expected, you smoking more, suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. So those silent screams are there because that man is not in a position to be validated or heard, so his way of saying, all right, cool, I want this attention, I'm gonna get it this way, whether that's impactful or negatively or positively. And oftentimes, of course, it manifests itself as being something negative.
What about high functioning depression? Many suicides have been known to come from people appearing to be okay. It's the invisible illness.
Correct. And the key word in what she said was appearing to be okay. Because outward, we want to be sane and pure for everybody else, but internally we're damaged, or we're screaming, or we want that attention. We want something that's more gratifying, and we don't know how to receive it, or we don't know how to find it, so we got to take an internal break and look inside ourselves. And most importantly, though, hopefully that's what COVID provided for some people. They can sit back and say, oh man, I've been home for this long, everything been great, I'm not going back to that stressful job, or just different stuff like that. Like, you definitely should have taken this time to enhance certain features and areas of your lifestyle, to be able to recognize certain things that you want to prevent, that you want to do differently now that you had this break, now that certain things can work, now that you can survive off a certain budget, so you're able to recognize certain things. So hopefully you being able to pick that up during the COVID situation.
How are we? No, let me save that one for last. Have you been in therapy yourself as an adult?
I do. Walk it like I talk it, man. I'm in that thing. And it's definitely important for me because as a therapist, I tend to get everything offloaded on me. So I have to ensure not only am I doing proper self-care for myself, but I want to ensure that I'm healthy, healed, and balanced for my therapy, for my family, right? Because I don't want to offload nothing off to them. They innocent in this situation. My daughter shouldn't have to get those, that negative impacts from me in session, or my partner, my lady shouldn't have to, wear that either. I shouldn't be stressed or at a certain point. So for me, it's easier to just go to therapy as well and process my feelings, my emotions, and stuff like that, because it's important, because I'm in it. So you know, different people throughout the day will give me their problems, and if I hold on to them, then am I any good to my circle, to my, you know what I mean? So for me, yeah, I'm actively in it.
I'm gonna ask you a personal question.
Sure.
Would you tell us about your past?
In which aspect?
So you mentioned you were in care.
Yeah.
How did it affect you?
Um, it made me. I built up a lot of resilience, man, and I know at a young age. So I masturbated myself at 16. So at that point, I knew what I wanted and what I didn't want anymore. So I was fortunate enough to understand. There's two sides to it, though, man, because my brother, of course, was in the same situation. His outcome is a little bit different. You know, so we're different people. We go through things differently. We react to things differently as well. We have a resilience in a different way. So for me, I'm glad I was fortunate enough to be on the positive side of that resiliency.
Yeah. You mentioned I'm going as fast as you can take it, man. Let me see. We've
Go
got
ahead.
a few minutes. Okay. You mentioned something about promiscuity.
Mm-hmm.
What has promiscuity got to do with trauma and mental health?
All right. So being promiscuous, people don't view it as a symptom or a coping mechanism, right? But it's so many diagnoses where being promiscuous is a symptom. I don't know how it is in the UK, but here it's a lot of single family households. So
Yeah.
just to, so all right. So you know what's let me ask you this: what's the cause of what's a coping mechanism to you? Like, would you say alcohol is a coping mechanism?
Yep.
Would you say writing in your journal is a coping mechanism?
Yep.
All right, cool. So the results from drinking alcohol, right? Let's say I'm upset, I'm depressed, I'm sad, or I got this trauma thing that I'm not dealing with, right? I drank this alcohol, I get behind the wheel, and I hit somebody, right? So a drunk driver, that's a negative coping mechanism. That's the result of it. The drunk driving, you hit somebody, you doing jail time or whatever. That's the same thing for being promiscuous, right? So if you look at it like this guy or this person was running from, or this was an actual symptom of something, and his way of dealing with it was being promiscuous. So it's multiple women. That's how he was doing it. Or if he was back to the trauma piece, if he was sexually active at an early age, that can be a result of it being promiscuous. Or if he is in a process of trying to discover himself and trying to offload different things to different people, that's where that being promiscuous come from. And of course, the result of that, like drunk driving, is children in multiple places by different women or whatever the case is. And a lot of people, again, don't look at that as a symptom, but being promiscuous is definitely a symptom of a couple of different things.
It's, you know, it's funny. I looked at that specifically because over here, some institutions teach that promiscuity is fine as long as it's safe sex.
Yeah, but are they addressing the issue though? What are you running
right,
from? You know, like
right,
what's under that? Like, you know, alcohol is fine too if you drink within moderation, but you know what I mean, after you sober or after you are like sitting down and thinking, you still got that problem to address. Even after medication, you know, like after this medication wear off, like have I addressed the issue? Nope, it's coming back. So tomorrow you back drinking. The day after that you back drinking or being promiscuous or whatever the case is, because you haven't addressed what the actual problem is, what the issue is. So you're gonna continue to run from it, and it's gonna be there.
yeah, I like that. So what we're seeing nowadays, bro, just to summarize, is that a lot of what we thought was normal, a lot of what we thought was that's just the way I am, now in this period of time when we're looking at studies and history and data, we can look back and say, well, a lot of what I am is dysfunction. It's not okay.
Yeah, and you got to remember, so anything that you learn, you can unlearn, and you can learn new information. And that's important because, again, the generations before us have told us certain things that we tend to stick with, whether it's hereditary or just traditions within their family. But, moving forward to our family, we have to decide on if we want that similar dynamic or if we want something different. So even some small, like gender neutral stuff, or coddling your son if he does decide to cry or express himself, different feelings and stuff like that, because it's important. But of course, the generations before us, like, no, let that boy cry, or let him do whatever, like, don't pat him up. So we got to break those cycles. We got to ensure that we are creating a healthy and nurturing environment so we wouldn't have a bunch of more damaged people. Like, even if you look at your office setting, you look around like, yo, they tripping. It's because, one, people don't know how to communicate effectively because they were never known to have that type of insight or positive communication. It's either arguing or bickering, or they shut down at the sound of confrontation, opposed to processing the conversation. It's a giver and a receiver of the message. But if you haven't been learned how to communicate, you think or you feel like you're being victimized when somebody want to correct you. So those are some of the cycles too that we have to break. So if you got a kid, it's important for you to exchange healthy dialogue in front of them so they can know what to do when it's time to meet resistance, if it's a confrontation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying expose them to an argument to where you somebody cussing and all that, but they definitely should be in a situation to where they can observe two healthy adults hashing out certain things in a positive manner, because that's effective. Like, have you ever looked at an adult and the first sign of somebody meeting them with a situation, they shut down or they just tense up and can't deal with it? Because they will learn, like, the unhealthy ways to deal with stuff.
One thing me and my wife always say is that the kids see us make up. And so is it fair to say that, well, let me ask you this. We're looking at trauma. How do you, what would your advice be to people who have, couples who have arguments in front of their kids? Is it good? Is it bad? Is there a way it should be done? Should they not see it happen?
I mean, to be honest with you, you're modeling a certain behavior. Children are impressionable, so you got to understand, like, this can be the start of a trauma bond. You got a young man, he's learning how to respond to women. You got a young lady who's learning how to receive a relationship from a man. So, you don't want them growing up to think like, oh, well, my dad yelled at my mom, so as that young man, I'm gonna yell at my girlfriends. Or if that young woman, oh, he's yelling at me, which means we're okay. So you don't want those things to happen, but you definitely want to ensure that it's a healthy exchange and dialogue, whether that's you two talking to each other calmly, even though there is probably like passion there or anger there, you still have to, model a certain behavior so they can see it. Or, just go in a separate place and you guys hash it out, or wait till they go to sleep. Because if you can't do it in a healthy way, then it's going to be more damaging to them than any good.
So what we got now, we got 7 minutes left on this first half, right? And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions for you. I have 6 questions for you. And I'm like, if I start this question now, you're not going to squeeze it in. Someone says here, so let me just fly through this. Someone says here, always make your future bigger than your past. COVID has amplified the challenges that many black men are facing for years. For real. And there was one up by Bobby. There we go. Our lived experience is ignored or disrespected so much that it makes sense that we hold a lot of things in. Wow. We have to find those safe spaces where we can get it out.
Yeah, that's a strong support system.
Wow. Wow. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to end this session slightly early. Bro, I'm going to call you back in. I have 6 questions. I don't think they're going to take too long, but it's how you want to flow. Guys, we'll see you literally in like 20 seconds. Bro, I'll see you in a minute. Yeah?
All right, cool. Yep.
Thank you, bro.
All right.
Mr. Mark, how you doing? So I have 6 interesting questions, man. Yeah. 6 questions, and I tell you, guys, this has been highly informative. I like the way he's throwing out the symptoms at us. He's helping us to see who we are. That's been the theme for this week. Let's bring it back in. Let's get straight in.
The past, dealing with the past is just keeps coming up. Keeps coming up, man. Dealing with the past. Thanks for coming back in, bro.
Yeah.
Question. What's your biggest concern in your experience, in your job, on this topic? What is your biggest concern?
With what?
With what you, people are sitting in front of you, or what you observe from the knowledge you've gained. What is your concern regarding how people are maintaining this, on what they are, how they may be, in a sense, living a destructive lifestyle, or it could be what shows up for you and something that actually makes you feel uncomfortable? I don't know.
Well, I think one of my biggest concerns as a therapist is, I don't know if this answers your question, but it may be or it may not be. If it's not, just make sure that I do answer it. But I think one of my biggest concerns as a therapist is not having my client have a positive experience and get turned off from therapy and not try it again, and then wind up being even more destructive within our lives, or even more impaired within our lives. So for me, because I was that person in therapy who didn't obtain anything twice, so I definitely don't want that to happen to my clients. I was fortunate enough to say, all right, cool, I'm gonna try it again. I'm gonna try it again. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. So I'm hoping that I can be that gateway to where a client is here and they're obtaining the information and the skills that they need to be on their own, basically. This is just a process, but you still have to do work beyond our session. So hopefully that's the case.
That was answered, man. How can I unlearn my past? How can I unlearn my behaviors?
So it's going to be difficult because, you've been that way probably, let's just say you're 35. You've been this way for 35 years, so it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a lot of growing pains. It's going to be a lot of challenging your thoughts and the behaviors that you once previously had. So it's important for you to do that. And it's important for you to understand to not be as resistant to whatever that process is. So whether that is going through therapy, whether that is, changing your lifestyle habits, whether that's eating or sleeping or being around different people, or just going the source of that information that you're trying to unlearn, just realize like, oh man, I didn't get the proper information, and sometimes, to be honest with you, it comes from our family, you know what I mean? Because they were telling us what they thought at the time were right, knowing that the generations before us, they had a different set of characteristics to live by. It was a different time. Now we got more technology, we got more empirical studies, we got more research, and also we got technology that's readily available. So those are some of the ways that you can potentially unlearn. But again, you want to ensure that you're going through the process healthy and whole, so you can be healed on the other side of it.
This might be a strange question. What is therapy?
Therapy is pretty much a time process, man. It's you. So it depends, right? So we got different interventions which can come into play, and we have the timing in itself that can take place. So therapy is you engaging and processing and different information, and it all depends on how you look at it, because we can. There's many forms of therapy, and there's many different theoretical orientations to therapy. So I'll give you a quick one. The type of therapy that I do is CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy. And that's pretty much your thoughts, your behaviors, and the things that are centered around that, right? So therapy is pretty much the process of how we deal with certain things. So that's, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what therapy is. So of course you got your physical therapy, trying to regain mobility back in your leg probably. You got talk therapy, of course, is the sessions that we probably do with different interventions and stuff like that. Psychodynamics and psychoanalytic therapy and stuff like that, person-centered therapy. So it's just that quality of exchange of information that you're processing with somebody.
And tell us more about CBT.
CBT is a form of behavior therapy, right? So it's cognitive behavior therapy. Cognitions are, of course, the way we think. The behaviors are affected by the actions in which we think. So, like the repetitive things, not knowing your triggers, different things within that.
Someone just asked a question. Someone's made a comment on here, and it's actually prompted a question. In fact, let me read this one first. So great to see a black male therapist. We need many, many more of you in the UK. The profession underestimates this need in the UK, and it's not good. Thanks to both of you. Thank you, Kim. And then someone else says, it's scary that the majority of people logged in are female. That's just the way it is, man. Not to say they shouldn't be here, but where are the men? Very much need to hear this and break the stigmas we have. Question to you. I had this question in mind from the start. How do we get more men into this? We've laid out the struggle, but here you are on social media. You're doing a great job. I've seen your page, and I'm listening to you. And I know this is a time when, this is an age where people are much more transparent. How are we going to get more men to just talk and be open?
So for me personally, what I do is I just put out the content, and it reaches different people at different times. Because to be honest with you, I can't help nobody, or any other therapist can't help nobody who don't see an issue with their problems or don't want to change. So they doing me a favor by not coming and just being resistant or not engaging, because they're wasting a spot for somebody who actually wants to help, whether that's male or female. So again, I can't help anybody who doesn't want help or who doesn't see an issue with that problem, with their actions, all right? But again, for me, I reach men by putting out content. They find it and they relate to it, like somebody on your timeline from the previous one we did. They were saying, oh man, this is me. So once I continue to put out content, it becomes educational to people, and they start internalizing different stuff, and then they start making changes or reach out to me or to other therapists to figure out, like, hey, I heard XYZ, is this true? Or I'm dealing with certain things. What can I do about it? So I just put out the content, and it opened up doors. And then two, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of, like this, there's a lot of females that somebody mentioned, right? So these females hopefully will go to their brothers, their fathers, their partners, their sons, and say, hey, listen, here's some research, or here's this guy book, or hey, so I've been fortunate enough to have that happen. somebody, you know, I get it all the time. Hey man, my wife said that she was doing a session on blah blah blah, or you got a group coming up on anger management, or you got a group coming up on men and depression. What I need to do to get, you know, so the
Yeah.
referrals, to be honest with you, come from the women, like somebody mentioned here. It's of course the women going, you know, that's one of the stigmas in it. You know, men tend to be more reluctant and ignore certain things, and women tend to be more observant and take care of their feelings. That's why they go to therapy more, and that's why they're able to prevent certain things from lingering on more.
Someone has asked a question to you. I think they might include me, but I'm going to ask it to you, man. What do you what do you think about starting from their interests? This is men. For example, outreach. Sorry, cuts off 1 second. Outreach in the community services that may do things like performing arts or sports, reaching the men. That's the question about reaching men. What do you think about that?
Perfect. I definitely think it's a healthy way to do so, and it's something that I've used in my sessions. Actually, I had this so quick testimony. I had this one kid, right? Mom brought him. She said, "Hey, you as third therapist. I'm not sure if we're going to get anywhere, but I'm not giving up." You know, the other therapist was a white guy. The other therapist was a female. You know, so a white male and then a female therapist. You, the first black male therapist. So hopefully we can, you know, see some changes in whatever the case is. So naturally, the young man was in the mindset of, oh, this is going to be just like the previous two therapists I had. So I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to do nothing, right? So to answer the young lady or the person's question, like meeting them where they are, that's just what I did. So in my sessions, you know, I wear what I want to wear. I wear jeans, I wear Jordans, or either I wear foam posits or, you know, t-shirt or whatever. I'm comfortable in my environment. So anyway, back to the story, that was a conversation starter for this young man, right? So I walked from behind the desk and he seen that I was wearing Jordans. And he was like, oh man, I got those Jordans too. So this right here is a finesse move. This is how I got them. Right, so I'm like, oh, what you know about Jordan, man? So he started listing different things about Jordan, right? So obviously he's in therapy, and some of the reasons why he was in therapy is because his attitude, he was defiant to authority, and you know, a couple other things, not getting along with his peers and everything, right? So immediately I used that relationship of sports to meet him where he are, right? So we started talking about Jordan. I'm like, oh man. So, you know, I'm reading through his chart like, oh, you got a problem with authority. You wasn't, you know, whatever the case is. So I'm like, you know all this about Jordan. So Jordan was coach, which means he listened to authority figures, you know. So that's when he was like, oh man, like, you know, we just went back and forth. So long story short, that right there was the end of resistance, because we were able to bond over something as simple as sports. So after a while, you know, his mom was just so fascinated because that little tidbit was able to open him up, in which he didn't have the previous two therapists that he had. So week after week, he'll just sit in session doing nothing. But with me, immediately, the ice broke. We were able to exchange dialogue. We was able to address certain things just based off the way I was dressed. You know, and that goes back to be honest with you, me being a positive representation within the field, me helping some people to aspire or want to attain certain things, and then two, just being, you know, you want to provide a service for somebody who look like you. It's easier, and that's how the therapeutic bonds was established. You know, and of course from there we went on to establish treatment plans and stuff like that, and to work on different things. Like, you know, for me, it was, I already know I'm a finesse him. I'm gonna get to the point. But to him, it was, oh man, we talking about sports, and you just made me realize, like, me talking back to my teacher is being disrespectful to authority, or me fighting my classmates, and you know that I'm not being a good teammate. So all of those things were able to be uncovered because, like the question said, I met him where he was. I was in his environment, and I brought him to my environment.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. You know, it was interesting. What came to mind, and Kim, she responded by saying, oh, so starting off on a more general topic, then relating it back to mental health in group settings, maybe. I think that we do what we have to do to make it work,
Sure.
just to make that connection. One thing that's interesting is that I think that church is feminized. It's been feminized for quite a few years in the way that songs are done, in the way that church is generally conducted. And there's a lot of women in the church institution. It's about 70%. And I've been to churches where it's just the vast majority of women. And I've been observing the church service. And the thing is, the church service, it should be a place where people are, it's like a hospital for people. Fellowship and socializing is great. But I think that what we need to do is say to ourselves, why are we not meeting the men? Why are they not here? We could do more, like what you said, and get out in the community and go and meet them and just have conversation, just make a connection.
So here in Virginia, the U.S., it's the opposite. So churches have known to be one of the starting ventures for, destruction as far as patriarchy, because it's normally a male pastor, male, everything else that flows after that. Women tend to not be in those leadership roles within the church. So here I think is a little bit different. I'm not sure if it is, from what you were saying, more females in church over there in the UK, but here
I'm speaking about UK. I guess I hope I'm right here, but it's what I've observed. But carry on, bro.
Yeah. No, here is different. It's the churches are like, it's still frowned upon for women to be in powerful positions in so many aspects of life here, whether that's the work environment, how they get paid, the pay structure, or the job duties and stuff they're doing, but especially in the religion side. So, yeah, I wouldn't be able to agree with that based on where I am.
Yeah, that's fine, man. There was one. Pray away.
Yeah.
Problems that we want to pray away. What's wrong with that? So, yeah, go ahead.
That's something. That's another construct that was passed down. Some people feel that they can pray it away, or church is the answer, whatever the case is. But my counter to that is your deity, your spiritual father or whatever, instilled in me with certain education, certain trainings, and certain things like that to also assist you. It's different. It's different ways and methods how you can obtain healing, how you can obtain certain things, and of course, therapy is one aspect of that. Praying is one aspect of that, but you still have to do the work, though.
Therapy-ish podcast said, "Don't get me started." We have a gift. It's true. I just want to say, Kim said, "Thank you. I love that. So powerful. Thanks for your advice and expertise that I would take back to my work." I know she's she's an expert in mental health. Very humble lady. Heard something about. Say again.
Tell Kim she's welcome.
Heard something about being your authentic self, which is important. Yeah, man. To meet the people out there, meet the men out there. I have one more tip, and then we're gonna have a look at your stuff, man. What's your number one tip? If you had to throw one mega tip out there.
So the motto that I have over top of my practice, my building, is to cope is a process, to heal is the outcome. And that's something that I believe, like coping is a process. Like you can go on and on learning different ways to cope, learn your resistance, your resiliency, and how you react to certain things. The outcome of that is, of course, to heal you, to hold you, to center you, to balance you, the model for your family, your co-workers, your peers, and stuff like that. So for me, that would be a tidbit. To cope is the process. The outcome is the healing.
It's been good. Seriously.
Appreciate
you're having me. Yeah, there's a lot of introspection happening right here.
Hmm.
Tell us about your book, though.
Oh man. So book, man, just express yourself. It's pretty much again, it was something that I was addressing, via emails and inbox and stuff like that. So I was like, oh man, like let me just put a piece of literature together so everybody can get it. So it's definitely a healthy tool for not only the men but for couples, right? So
Okay.
your wife can buy this book. She can give it to you. You can complete the exercises in it and give it back to her, and you guys can exchange dialogue on it. So some of the topics in here is, of course, affirmation, goals, trauma, mood, displacement, abandonment, grief, anger, lifestyle, coping, healing, tough love, pride, peer pressure, stress, um, you know, communication, masculinity, boys will be boys. So I'm addressing like so many different topics, and you, the man, have the option of writing out your answer or drawing out your answer. So depending, and then of course, like I said, let's say you complete this book, right? Like if your wife, like, oh man, when he shut down, like, oh, is he mad at me or is he just dealing with something? So let's just say she flipped through this book and realized, like, oh, that's what it means when he shuts down. He's not upset with me. He's upset because of X, Y, Z. And now you two can talk about it. It's just a conversation starter. It's a way for you guys to open up, exchange dialogue in a healthy way. Because outside of doing it that way, certain conversations can be emotional driven or controversial and can cause issues within a relationship. Like if she just randomly walked up to you and asked about your traumas, like you thinking about it, it would be a issue. But if it's a exercise that you two are doing together to, of course, build your relationship and build the communication with each other, to be fine. And it's also a tool for the younger men, so 10 years old, right? So just
10
imagine,
years old. We
yeah,
can
10
use this on
years old.
children as well.
Exactly. So just imagine though, you got a 10-year-old son, you give him this book. He completes his book. He then goes 2 years, go back to the book. He can see how much he's grown. He can see, am I still being triggered by some of the things that used to trigger me? Or he can go to the peer pressure chapter. He can just learn. He'll be ahead of the curve because there's so many different tools in here that he'll know what to prevent, or he'll know how to engage in certain things. But I think most importantly for the young people, it's that gauge of, oh man, I'm still getting mad if somebody do this. So I still got work to do, so those are some of the resources and some of the ways why the book is going to be helpful.
I like what you've done. You've done a few things there. The book is practical. The book can be done as a couple.
Correct.
And you know what was interesting about the book? You said something just now. It was, oh man, it slipped me. You said something real deep. And it was slipping away as I was talking. Let me go back. You're going to send me the link to that book.
Okay. Wait,
and then we can
website.
put it through your website.
Yeah.
Send me the, okay. I'll tell you what, whilst we're here, what's the website?
www.men2heal.com. mentohel.com.
Men to Heal.
Yep. And it's also on Amazon. I don't know if your Amazon there is different than it is in the US. But the name of the book is Man, Just Express Yourself. So they can put in a title and it'll probably come up if you're Amazon.
Summer, coping is a process, healing is the outcome. That one. No, it wasn't that one. Right, there was a comment here. There was a comment here. Where is it? It's coming. Are we going to touch on religious abuse? That is another show. I'll happily talk to you afterwards, man. But coping is a process. Yeah, that book is heavy. We're gonna get an image and we'll put it up on our page. Are we done? Yeah, we got the book right away from it. Bro, you've educated us so much. We can, if I need help, and although I'm in the UK, if I need help, if there are any men that need help, we can contact you simply, even just through Instagram, yeah?
Yeah. Or my website, they can email me, hit me here, or whatever the case is. And if I don't have the resource, I'll definitely assist you and trying to find and locate those resources.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you for your time, man.
Thanks for having me, man. You guys doing an excellent job, man, bringing the people different things. So I'm happy to be a part of it, man. Hopefully people were enlightened and learned something.
Definitely. I did. I mean, I've made some crazy notes here. This page is full of pen. Appreciate your time. God bless you. Someone saying this was great. Thank you, Pippa. James, I'm going to let you go now.
Yeah,
and I'm going to talk to my people. Have a good time, and we'll contact you real soon.
my man. Appreciate you, bro.
God bless, man.
All right.
People, thank you for joining us, man. It was deep. Especially like in the earlier parts when he was throwing out all these symptoms. I mean, I'm looking at myself like, oh my gosh, is that me? You know, and I've got a lot to learn. We all have a lot to learn about ourselves. That is it for this week. However, next week is going to be very, very heavy. Next week is going to be very heavy. We have a lady on who's going to talk about the mistakes she made and where she is now. And then we're also going to talk about how men can prepare for marriage. Aye. How men can prepare for marriage. So get these guys on. I'm going to find a way. Someone help me to market this thing because the men are just not turning up enough. Ken, message me, bro. People, thank you so much. God bless you all. Samuel, peace, man. How you doing, bro? Pippa, let me just say hello to everyone. Miss Dolphin, Hydrofacial Queen. What's that? Yeah, man. What you selling? I'm always asking, innit? Some of these names I can't even say. Little Mission, a Mission. Wow. Blessings. Kevin, Clive. I can't say this one. Coaching. Ingrid Cummins. Thank you guys, man. We'll see you soon. Therapy podcast. Let's talk about these this church abuse, man. Let's talk about it sometime. Take care, people. We'll see you next Monday. Next Monday evening at 9 o'clock. God bless.